So I'm going to, we have a, yeah, we have a quorum, right? I mean, I don't know if we really need to vote on anything, but right, because we have
Yeah.
3 out of 5.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to call to order the Town of North Stonington Sustainability Committee meeting of February 1st, 2022, at 7:08 p.m. and Alexis Khan present.
Tula Balistrossi.
Craig Fistula.
Awesome. Do we have any, let's see, sorry. We had the meeting minutes from the last meeting. Do we have, I forget whether, sorry. I forget whether we have those. Should I, oh wait, sorry. Look at myself. I just got in the door. Kind of, January 11th. Yes, we have the meeting minutes from that, which are draft. So they're up on the screen, but obviously, Craig, you can't read them. So please don't look at your screen. Do you want me to read them out loud? Or
Did I do these?
No.
yes, I think so.
If I did these and I sent them out to the committee then.
Okay. Any comments? They look good to me.
I believe in you guys. I do. Yeah. Good team. It's good to trust people.
Wait till we do that team building workshop, Craig. I don't know.
Yeah, I would totally fall into both of your arms without a second thought. That's funny to say, but you just get a sense for people, but I would.
Are we doing it? Is there a team build? Is there a workshop?
No, but I've gotten people together at axe throwing, and it does do team building.
Yeah, maybe this spring summer we can pick up junk and canoes and then throw some axes.
Right, I like it. You know what else is really good, just in case anybody needs team building? Waterford Country School has really good ropes courses, and I've done things like that for, like, it was with a leadership program I was involved in, and we did like team building stuff with that. It was actually really fun. They have one of those climbing walls. Anyway,
let's add it to the agenda.
Great. Seriously. Isn't there the place in Mystic too? Is it like Fields of Fire or something like that? When you see on the highway.
That's right.
Anyway.
So motion to approve the minutes.
So move.
Right.
Second.
Great, awesome. Thank you. So then, so the climate leader designation update. I did ask, this is, you know, this is just kind of a quick update, but I did ask the person who sort of is our point of contact and kind of the leader of the Sustainable CT initiative. I think I forwarded it maybe, but maybe I didn't. That, because basically the question was, for the climate leader designation, where do we stand against the total amount of points that we need? That was the question that we had during the last committee. So we need 140 points towards the certificate, you know, if we want the climate leader designation. And we currently, as we stand right now, based on the prior year's certifications that we've received, are at 35 points towards the 140. So not so much, but not nothing. So the only clarification she had was that, like, it will depend on the look back for some of these. So she said those would need to be hit for the past action deadline for whatever year we seek the designation. So for example, like some of them have 3-year look backs. And let's say we did something 2 years ago, but then this year, because it's like this year, maybe we got points for it because we, let's say, did the action, let's say it was some sort of a climate event, I'm just making something up. And let's say the look back period for this year, 2021 certification cycle, was 3-year look back and we did it 3 years ago. then this year it might not be applicable. Like she was just going off of what we have currently, but she didn't like check to make sure that all the look back periods would still apply for 2022. So that's just like a point of clarification, but basically she's, we're probably around 35 points. The benefit is that it's going to have the same certification deadlines, and you can submit for, it's going to go through the exact same process in the same portal as the sustainable CT certification if we go for silver anyway. So it's sort of like one of those things that we can either, it doesn't have a whole separate deadline. It doesn't have a whole separate portal. Some of the criteria, like all the actions are part of the overall sustainable CT actions anyway. So it's kind of like we can just see the way that I was kind of looking at it and wanted to see what you guys thought. But essentially, like we could just see what we're looking to focus on in terms of what sub actions will, either like want to take on, or just we've already done something and we can get, try to submit for points for it. And then if they just happen to align with the climate designation leadership focus, then we try to go for both. But if we don't get enough points because we just don't have anything in the climate leader category, then we don't get it, if that makes sense. Because it's like they both overlap. So I just feel like we'll just see where we stand.
Okay, so just so I have it right,
Sure.
It's 140 points for the designation, and we have 35 points. But if there's a 2-year look back, we could potentially have earned more points.
No, it's basically that she didn't check, like that. She didn't. Sorry, I think we lost it. She hadn't checked that everything would still qualify for this year based on all the look back periods. But essentially, I mean, I think that part is not super important. It just means that like there's a possibility that if we go to apply this year, the 35 points are not like etched in stone, because she didn't go through that closely to see like, well, we got points. We have 35 points as we stand now based on something that had the sub action had a look back period of 3 years. And therefore, like this year, we won't qualify for that anymore unless we've done it subsequently. Like if we did like an event, for example, 3 years ago, but then we did it again last year, then we'd still get the credit for it, if that makes sense.
Okay, and then can you remind me, what is the deadline for this?
So it's the same August timeframe for this, like the same cycle of sustainable CT certification. So if we go for the silver this year, based on the fact that we're like at 300 points as we stand against the 400 required for silver, then it opens up, the portal opens up for the application cycle in the spring. It's usually like May or June, and then August it's due. So it's the same exact time frame for the climate leader designation as it is for the regular sustainable CT. Like her point was that the reason why they kind of overlap is because we don't need, our certification lasts 3 years. So unless we're going for silver, we can just not touch it and we'll still be bronze certified this year. Like we don't even have to try, and we're locked into bronze for 2022, 2023, I think, and then 2024 we need to recertify. So if we weren't going for silver, this would be like a whole independent undertaking for the climate leader designation. But if we're going for silver, it's like the exact same process, and just would need to fulfill the points required for the climate leader designation versus like for silver, we can choose from anything, and climate leader, we just have to fulfill points for these very specific categories, if that makes sense.
It does. So every time we get certified, it's for 3 years, right?
Yes.
So I guess the question is, within the 3 years after certification, do we focus on other certifications and ride out the 3 years of our previous certification? Or is every year the goal try to get, is it gold, bronze? I mean, what is the highest one?
The highest one currently, I think they were introducing a gold this year for 2022, but in the past, the highest has been silver. So we got, the first year we participated was 2019. And then we went for silver in 2020 and didn't get it. And then we went for silver in 2021 and didn't get it. But like, we got additional points between 2020 and 2021. So we're accumulating more points towards the 400, but we're just still, haven't hit the goal yet.
Do some of those points still start dropping off? Like if we didn't do anything until we needed to recertify, would we go in at 300 or would we potentially be down because some of those would have sort of expired?
Some of them would have expired. Yeah, because of the look back period. So if you've submitted for something that has like a 3-year look back period, by the time, depending on where in that 3 years the like action occurred on the town side, by the time we, let's say, like apply for a new 3-year certification round, we might have to do that thing all over again.
Yeah.
So do we have it like on our spreadsheet or somewhere, like when we earn the points and when they expire?
It's kind of muddy. That's why I think she didn't go back and like look through all of them. Usually that's something that, to be quite honest, we have like the interns at the beginning of the, like once we have the interns assigned, I remember last year they went back and delved into, okay, like for certain things here, this is still valid based on the last, like when we applied for it the last time, like it was still within the look back period. And then in some of the cases, they flagged it as, hey, did you guys do something similar to, like, are you continuing to do this because you were citing documentation that showed that you did this 5 years ago, and in order to like get credit for it, you have to show that it's still ongoing in some capacity. So in some cases, you do have to like produce additional documentation or fill out an additional worksheet because we didn't like, maybe it's still being done, but we don't have any like proof of that until we submit for it. So I don't have like a snapshot of that, but the interns usually do a pretty good job of like seeing where we stand when we start off.
Yeah. Alexis, do we get those interns every year, regardless of what our plans are? Like,
yeah,
whether we say we're going for silver or we're going to just hold the phone, either way, we get people to kind of help flush things out to keep us on task of where we might be for the next couple of years.
Oh, I think I believe I can check on that, but I believe that you only get an intern assigned to you if you're applying for something. So if like we applied just for the climate leader designation, but not for any, like if we're sticking with bronze, I think we would get an intern. But if we're just saying like, we want to just see how things are going, but not do anything towards like a certification this year, I don't think you get an intern. I think it's if you're actively applying for like a certification level. You can recertify anytime you want. So we could technically say like, oh, we're just going for bronze this year again. But the problem is that even like it's one of those things that like, if we open it up, because I think this is like kind of what we did last year. You either get certified for 3 years and then don't have to touch it in that intervening time, or you need to, if you're going to open it up and say, oh, we're going to apply for silver, in order to get the points, you have to like do a lot of things over again. Even if that was kind of the struggle this year, is I was like, oh, we automatically are coming in with 200 points, and it wasn't that easy because some things we had to say like, well, we're continuing to do that, and here's proof we're continuing to do that, because you know what I mean? So it was sort of like, you don't want to open a can of worms unless you're going to go for the gusto.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it's kind of tricky.
Yeah.
I mean, they seem interrelated enough, the climate designation and the sustainable CT, that it's silly to do one without going for the other. But to do both is a lot of work. for a small contingent of devoted but overextended humans.
But
Yeah,
we
I
still
mean,
have, like, do we have a year left or 2 more years left to work our way up to the bronze designation?
we have the bronze designation currently, so we're certified for three years, I'm sorry. The certification lasts a town 3 years. So I think that means we would have it for 2021, 2022, and then 2023, and then we would need to recertify again for 2024, or during any of those intervening years, if like either 2022 or 2023, if we wanted to apply for silver, we can do that, or we can wait until 2024 and then just apply for silver and then do the whole kit and caboodle. But like if we don't reapply in 2024, then we wouldn't be bronze or silver at that point because it would expire.
So like right now, do we actually need to apply, or can we work on those initiatives if we have time, if we were just focusing on the climate leader?
Yeah, yes. We can just do the climate leader if we want. Like if we wanted to just say, all we're going to focus on is that, then we can try for the climate leader designation, but hold the phone on any sort of like silver or whatever, and just say we're going to recertify, or we're going to keep our bronze certification level and call it a day.
But when we did, in that situation, if and when we did go for silver, we would have that stuff that we did to use for the application process. I mean, it still would be applicable, right?
Right, exactly. If we did like a bunch of actions that were new for the climate leader designation, and we got like, so basically, let's say we got 110, no, sorry, I think I could do math, 105 new points, because currently we're at 35 and we need 140. So let's say we got 105 points that were brand new. That 105 points would be of like essentially like exactly what we need, because we're at 300, we need 400. So
yes, it's 1-to-1 points.
Right.
It's the same points.
Yeah,
100 points in one place is 100 points in another. So doing one is doing both.
Yes. So it kind of be like, if we're going to go for the climate leader, we may as well go for silver too, because we can use the same points towards the 100 points that we're missing for silver.
Right. Not a short order though, if I recall looking at it last week, it was a lot of stuff to get that many points.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not easy, and it will sort of be a matter of let me see if I can find, here we go. It will be a matter of, let's see, I'm pulling up the worksheet, of seeing if any of these like are even within our like I mean, increase preserved open space. Some of these, you know what she didn't tell me is which of these we already have for. So I think that's a big ask of her, but I can just go look in the portal essentially to try to figure it out. But like some of the point is there's all these these actions that have different points next to them, but things like increased preserved open space has 10 points. I would venture a guess that we already have those 10 points, because this has been something that we've, made progress in the past. So we'd have to go for something that we haven't already gotten points for, which might be something that's more difficult than, the portal hasn't opened up yet though. She said that would go in the, like in terms of, we're working to create an action submission page, and that will be ready in the spring. So sometime in the spring, it should be more clear in terms of like how it works within the system that they have. Any questions?
So I haven't actually gone through the list to see what the action items are, but are they realistically feasible?
Let's see. So I can, you know what, let me share my screen. I just need to send it over from to my work email. And I told you I have that kind of wonky. I have to send it outside my VDI. So hold on 1 second. I'll share it. I mean, the more I really like the program, and I definitely, my personal preference would be to at least, you know, maintain sort of where we're actively involved in it, you know, in terms of like maintaining the certification and everything and not letting it completely fall by the wayside. But I also, I think I'm a little hesitant, and I think this is after we've had some discussions about this, sort of feel like maybe we want to pick stuff that really resonates with us and we're enthusiastic about. And then if it happens to, you know what I mean, like pick our spots and then get really, you know, into doing something. And if it falls within an action that we can get points for, then great. But like, I think the frustrations I've had in the past with the program is that it's sort of like, I think I've used this expression before, like teaching to the test a little bit. You know, you're like, oh, can we do this? Because we need to like get points for it versus we want to really do this because this is what, you know, we find is meaningful and we have passion for, you know what I mean? So especially because we've kind of done this for a couple of years now. And if we have, I think if it's something that is like easy enough / we're motivated enough to do, then I think that's great. But you know, I think it would be great for the committee to kind of pick our own path rather than just being like, do we get points? Do we get points? But I'm certainly open to your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say that's how I feel similarly. I mean, optimally, right? You want it, I think the program is there, you know, loosely to make the world a better place, to make the town a better place. And that's what we want too. So you hope that you can do the good work and then get some, you know, quote unquote credit for it. But I think, especially as we're sort of like developing this, to keep energy up and to keep, you know, to have it grow, I think doing things that sort of touch on what's really important to North Stonington and what's important to us is probably a priority, and then we grow into a larger group of people who can click on more boxes and get more points for various things over time.
Right. So to answer your question, I mean, some things like achieve lead silver, hire for municipal building, I think might be a little hard. But
well, I guess that was my question too, because I feel like a lot of these are not applicable or obtainable because our town is not structured the way these initiatives are. So, you know, if there's 20 initiatives and we can only do 5, you know, and maybe that's something we need to do is go through that here and see, is this for North Stonington?
Right. I know we've talked about C-PACE. I think that might be I know we've, maybe I'll ask Nate about this. I know it's like been a thing that has been discussed, but I can't remember whether there's anything coming up on CPACE projects. Does anybody happen to remember
What is it?
the CPACE? It's like a, oh, you know what? Let me Google it. I don't remember what it stands for. I can ask Nate about it. I think Connecticut Green Bank, it's green energy financing. It's like a project. It's a financing structure in which building owners borrow money for energy efficiency, renewable energy, etc. So earn credit for approved CPACE projects. So if like the town, if somebody in the town was doing something where they were borrowing, going through the Connecticut Green Bank for financing, I think that would qualify. But, and I don't know if we have a CPACE resolution, although it's only 5 points. So like, yeah, picking spots here. Some of these I can't remember if we've already done, like develop an open space plan. That seems like an easy thing for the town to, you know, kind of our thing here is open space. I feel like some of the open space stuff is viable, right? Things like the complete streets, that was more urban for my recollection. And like bicycle friendly community designation is a little, I just don't really have the streets for. I don't know what EVSC stands for. EVS, smart charging station. That's what this is. EVSC or SE, sorry. I can go through the actual portal and try, because these don't give a lot of detail, so I can see what some of these entail and share them at the next meeting if that works.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Sure.
Alrighty. Any other questions on that? Okay. The other, let's see, there's some questions. So I had, as a follow-up to the native energy discussion that we had last time, I did, I had approached Belinda Leonard because I had served with her on the subcommittee for the farmers market, and she's the mother of Ben Leonard, who I kind of know. I bought some hay from them, and they're one of the, you know, the dairy farmers in the town. And just to kind of like, I think, remember last time we were sort of concerned about approaching farmers being like, guess what we want you to do? And then they're like, this doesn't make any sense. So I asked her if she could be part of the sustainability committee because I said we were interested in having, you know, somebody directly from the farming community on the committee. And I knew she had been involved with the farmers market. And it turns out that on Tuesdays, she does CSA deliveries like into the evening, so she would be able to do it. Perhaps if we moved it, but we, you know, it took a lot of wrangling to get Tuesday, so I feel like we'll stick with Tuesday unless anybody wants to change it. If we did another night, she might be able to join. But the point is, she was very happy to be sort of our kind of liaison or consultant to the farmers, or at least from the perspective of the farmers. It's not like she necessarily has like super close relationships with all the farmers in the town, but at least she kind of like knows what they're going through. And her, Tula, you might understand this a lot better than I did. She was mentioning that from like an accounting standpoint, she said that part of the concern that they would have about putting in, first of all, she's like, a digester is way too large for any of the, like, they're really small scale dairy farms in the grand scheme of things. She was like, that's just way too big of an undertaking. And so I was talking more about the composting. She was saying from an accounting, like kind of finance perspective, even if they got full like grants and, you know, Native Energy paid for it and everything like that, that the challenge was, again, I'm not going to really do a very good job of explaining this, but something about they have to, the way that they're accounting is for any kind of personal income or something. And essentially her concern was that there'd be ongoing tax implications if they were, let's say, generating revenue from selling the manure to the, like, she knew the name of the company that buys it. I think it's called Cow Pots in Connecticut, the ones that, like, I think she just thought there were going to be more implications from a tax perspective than just like Native Energy pays for it, don't worry about it, like it's all good. So she was also saying that the farmers just have a lot on their plates right now in terms of during the pandemic, the I think, like, I don't know if it was the USDA or somebody basically said they had to cut down because there was less schools and less milk in the schools and in different places, so the demand was a lot lower, and so they were forced to cut production by 15%. And you know, that was a huge burden on the dairy farms, because you can't just like stop milking them by 15%, like they still need to be milked the same amount. And so I guess it's been a little bit reduced to down 12% instead of 15%. But she still said, like, they're just dealing with a lot right now. You know, they've are really kind of challenged by the whole supply and demand and how they're being regulated, you know, the quotas that they have to meet and things like that. So she was saying it's like not really ideal timing. That was from her perspective. She said, you know, it's different from a farm by farm basis, but you know, somebody else may have a different opinion, but she was like, I don't see this being the thing. The interesting thing was that we were talking then about she had a suggestion, but it came out of talking about like no-till farming, because that was an episode of the podcast I love so much, How to Save a Planet. There was a whole episode on no-till farming, and we were talking about that, and she brought up such an interesting point, which is that apparently a lot of the North Stonington farms that do have acreage devoted to raising corn for feed for their cows do plant oh my gosh, why am I coming I'm totally blanking on the name, we were talking about it so much. Cover crops. They did plant cover crops, which are, she was talking about it from the standpoint of how might we be able to help more of the carbon retention in the soil based on practices on more of like the corn growing and other crop growing side of things, as more of like the carbon holding of the soil, rather than focusing on like the methane release through the actual cows. And what she said that was so interesting is that here the crops, the cover crops are so much better for carbon, you know, keeping carbon in the soil. And they even like her farm has the tool that does the where you don't have to till, you can just punch a hole in the ground and then plant the seed, and so therefore you don't have the whole till process that like uncovers the carbon and releases it into the atmosphere, you know, into the air. But she said the problem is the cover crop competes with, like, you have to get rid of the cover crop at the end of the winter, because it competes with the you know, then if you're trying to plant corn and soybeans, like you basically need to kill the cover crop before you can plant the soybeans or the corn. And so she said for that, basically they haven't come up with seemingly like a good way to get rid of the cover crop without turning it over and defeating the whole point of all of this of no-till, because like they can't get rid of them so that they don't compete with the corn or the soybeans. And so she said in a lot of cases they just spray Roundup. And she was like, that's defeating the point of like, there's like a catch-22. Like they're like, they don't want to be spraying the Roundup. Just seems like a terrible idea to apply such a pesticide to the soil. But then like the only other alternative is to like till it up so that it gets rid of the cover crop. So she said there's a seminar being hosted by a farm in Lebanon, which apparently has some sort of equipment or is going to be teaching people about how they've addressed this with being able to get rid of the cover crop through like a roller or something like that. And so she's going to know more. I think it was in March or something, but like, it's just so interesting that here I was like, well, no-till farming, like it's so great. And then she's like, yeah, but here's the options and what's the lesser of the two evils. So things like that, I think she's really helpful in terms of providing some perspective. Her thought was if, she's like, there's a lot of more Stonington, like small farms, not, the ones, not necessarily the dairy farms that have like acres and acres and acres of corn that they're growing for silage, but rather like, all these farms that maybe that are more private, not like the big, commercial farms. And that if we did some sort of like this outreach campaign about different kinds of cover crops to plant during the winter, that helps really the soil. There was something about, she called it a winter radish, I think was the name of it. And it was something that like grows up to 2 feet deep. And because of that, like it dies. And so then you can just like plant on top of it. But apparently like the hole that it leaves in that 2-foot depth of the radish being in the ground allows a lot of like introduction of better drainage and more minerals into the, like kind of mixing the mix of minerals in the soil. So, just like for those farms that aren't necessarily commercial, to kind of spread the word a little bit about different cover crops that could be, so I don't know if this could, maybe something through the library or just some sort of talk on cover crops for some of the town kind of more hobby farmers. That was her idea for trying to like do better on the carbon retention of the soil for towns in, for farms in town. But the bigger thing that came out of the conversation is that maybe we could just have like a little bit more outreach instead of like, okay, we want to do this, like outreach to each individual kind of larger commercial farm in town, like, Palmer, the Lewis's, the miners, and just kind of approach it from like, hey, like, this is our goal in terms of the sustainability committee. How can we work together? You know what I mean? Because she said the problem with her speaking for all of them is that they all have different models and they all have, she can't really like know exactly what their challenges are or like what some of the issues that they're coming across or things that they're thinking about. And if we kind of try to do it in more of like what needs do you specifically have and how can we work together, with you, that might be a good way to start rather than it being like, we think you should do this. So I just thought I'd float that idea because that was something that came out of our call. And I asked her, okay, for you guys specifically, how do you answer that question? Like, what can we do with you, with your farm? And she said she was going to give it some thought, but I think she's a great, like, she's clearly very, I think her mind is very much oriented in like towards sustainability. She clearly is aware of this and really understands some of the consequences of farming actions. So I think she'll be a great ally, but she was just basically saying like, I can't speak for all the other farms. So it's maybe helpful to hear from them directly.
Cool. That's a really great connection.
Yeah.
I agree because they're, these are multi-generational farms. They've been doing it their way, forever. So, I mean, it might be nice to even have like a round table, with some of the farmers, because what one considers or, whatever their priorities are might be different as far as sustainability for the others.
Right. That's a really good idea to do like just a like invite, for maybe this could be like an Earth Day thing where we just have like a round table with just a chance to chat. Like it could be informal and maybe even like a open house kind of thing where, because I know that it's hard for them to necessarily show up at a specific time, but if we gave them like a window of just stop in and meet with us and talk about our their concerns and how we might be able to help.
I think so when in upstate New York, Cornell is like the big college up there, and there's a cooperative extension, right? So there's all this like agriculture, and they do all this outreach, and that's the connection. That's like the connection between, the more sort of like, I don't know, put any box on it you want, but the more sort of, oh man, words. The agricultural people, like the farmers, and then the folks like in the books, right? So we're like, we want to save the world. So I think what we shouldn't do is be like, hey, we want to save the world, and this is how you should do it, because obviously they've been doing it for a long time. So does UConn have like a cooperative extension where like we need some cred, right? We need some like some backup, some actual people who are in, like for me or for you, like that was pretty good. You use words like silage and but like, the veil is pretty thin. It becomes pretty apparent pretty quick that we have no idea what we're talking about.
Right.
But there are people out there that do, and that like live in this world that sort of branches academia and research with agriculture. And I think we need to lean into those people to have those allies, to have those conversations at the table, because otherwise I think there's just this giant gap in the middle that is like nearly insurmountable, because we want to like make it all better, but like it's so I've kind of done this with different communities, agriculture and otherwise in college, and like when you go in, you say, I want you to do something differently, like the defenses go up really, really quick, right?
Right.
And for good reason, because it's not easy to do that work. Like they're working their butts off for not a lot and trying to keep it all working in the face of all sorts of challenges. And we can be sympathetic to that on the inside, but it's hard to sort of convey it, I think, in my experience at least.
So one thing that just comes to mind, because actually this is like at the next point on the agenda, but maybe a way, because one of the things that Belinda mentioned was like kind of preliminarily in the way that we could help them is she was saying like, getting more people to source their own food in town from the farmers that are growing it. And that sort of leads into the next topic of the farmers market, because so apparently it's not confirmed yet, and you may already have heard something about it. I think it was posted on Facebook by Laura Tillinghast, but there's like a pop-up farmers market that's private. It wouldn't be town run. It would kind of be in a private capacity. It's with
Milltown Arts.
Yeah. And Matt Wild from Fire Farms is the other kind of person who's, Matt from Wildfire Farms.
No, Wildbriar.
Oh, did I say?
Did you say fire? I think you're confusing Firefly with Wildbriar.
Wildbriar. I wrote it down wrong. It was a verbal conversation. I think I wrote down Wildfire. It's Wildbriar.
Cool. So yeah, tell me more about that.
So it's a pop-up that there'll be one each month for the months of May, June, July, and August. And it's going to be, the idea is to kind of have it be a collaboration between the kind of like the smaller farms in North Stonington that don't do like anybody can come, but like those that don't do the regular farmers market circuit, where they would want kind of the opportunity to showcase their own produce and goods.
Yeah.
As well as collaboration with the new North Stonington Arts Council, or I forget the exact name of it. I can pull it up. But essentially to showcase like local artists. So it's kind of like a farmer's market and farmers and artisanal market. So to show some of the like artistic endeavors that are also available for sale. Have this be like a forum to be able to share that as well.
Cool.
And so the other thing is that Milltown Arts, North Stonington. That's the name of the kind of arts endeavor that Laura Tillinghast is running. So the thoughts were I asked if we could like have kind of how we were talking about having like a table or something. Like I was saying, oh, we were thinking about doing like the kayak or the canoe cleanup. Like this would be a great place for us to have, let's say, like a table at the pop-up. It's apparently going to be like a mini, like almost like a mini No Stow Fest, you know what I mean, like that kind of feel, but pop up with a more of a focus on the farmers market aspect of it, and obviously once a month for 4 months, and we would have a chance to have a table if we wanted to let's say like kind of spread the word about what we're doing. And it's going to be at Hewitt Farm, most likely. It's not confirmed, but that's where they're looking to have it. And then we could, let's say like try to solicit people to do the canoe cleanup, or, any kind of other activity that we're trying to solicit participation in. And the other thing that we talked about was that we can maybe like use this as the like opportunity to pass out and raise awareness about like kind of a farm trail map. So it would show, okay, here's all the locations and sort of approximate like availability. We've talked about this before, I think, of, all right, here's all the farms in North Stonington. Here's the ones that you can buy directly from, in whether it's in CSA and here's the website, or whether it's through a farmer's market, they show up to the Ledyard Farmer's Market every Tuesday, or, basically like where you can actually source their products. And that made me think of, if we like in some capacity spearheaded this, that might be, or collaborate in some capacity on the map, that would be a way for us to reach out to the farmers to say, hey, do you want to be present on this map? And let's get some info from you. And then that sort of like is our way of introducing ourselves to the farmers, and then having the broader conversations about like, hey, how can we work together more broadly? And so then we're kind of approaching it as more like collaborative and seeing what opportunities might arise, rather than it being like, we want you to have a company, you know what I mean? So that was just a thought, but I'll stop now.
Well, I think it's a really, really great thought. Nice thought. Love it.
I'm wondering if we should have some sort of standard form, either we present to them or we keep, and so we're asking the farmers the same questions, what do you need help with? What are you, what is your sustainable, issue? How can the town help you more, or something like that? So, so that we're all asking the same questions, and then
Right.
seeing what the pool of answers are, or if there's a wide range of responses.
That's
Yeah, for sure.
like a form where it's standardized, rather than just like having these one-off conversations with people.
Right.
That's a good idea. That's a really good idea.
Because it's going to vary if we're talking to a dairy farmer versus a floral farmer.
Right.
So,
right.
And I'm well, too bad Pat's not here. I think Pat's part of the community garden, right?
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of people that farm, not necessarily on a big scale, but farming is important to them.
Right. Yeah, that's a really good idea. Sorry.
And I am
mean-
impressed by all the information you retained with your conversation with Belinda.
Oh. I try, although I got the name of the market wrong, or the Briar, I thought it was Fire Farm, it's Briar Farm, okay.
Oh, maybe you don't drive by it. It's on 49.
On 49.
Um,
Whereabouts?
it's right past, if you're going north on 49, if you're on 184, take a left down 49, you go past Hangman Hill, and it's after that on your left. They'll have some horses out or their donkeys out.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not envisioning it now, but I think I think I know where it is. I just can't picture it very well. I mean, what is sort of the appetite for starting with kind of the map as a way to kind of get more in tune with and the survey questions for the you know, kind of bridging the relationships with the farmers?
So what do you mean, like asking if they want to be on
Yeah, I
a
think
farm
it's a
trail
perfect
map?
way to develop relationships.
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was too late. Yeah, I think you got it.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a great icebreaker.
Cool. Does anybody else, in terms of the farmers market initiative, have any other interest in, like, I mean, I was sort of thinking that if we had a table as well as, at least in one, you know, not all four, but like maybe one of them, like to try to get people to sign up for like the canoe thing, and then doing the math. But is there any other interest in, you know, like, I guess think about it, and if there's any, they are certainly looking for people who are interested in like helping organize it. And so if there's any interest, they are asking for if our participation. I mean, I would love to kind of do the map, that would sort of be in conjunction with that. But you know, if there's other ways you want to help, they are welcoming that.
Is my assumption that we don't have any money budgeted, right, from the town for our committee?
No, but one of the things is that, sorry, one of the things I mentioned, and I'm going to reach out to Sustainable CT about, is seeing if because I guess the farmers market needs some startup capital to get this off the ground.
Yeah.
And that I want to see if we could get a matching grant for it.
Oh, okay.
Because I think this could be a good project for that. And apparently they were planning on doing crowdfunding to raise some money anyway. So if they're doing that anyway, then it's like, you might as well just get a grant, you know, get it matched if we, you know, because if they raise, I don't know, whatever, $1,000 just via crowdsourcing, then we get another 1,000. That's a lot more than we would have had otherwise.
Yeah, that's great.
Alrighty.
Is there is no such map right now? Nothing like that exists. We have to start from scratch, or is there something?
There isn't anything. I know the Economic Development Committee, they were trying to work on like a business map, but that was I don't think that ever happened, and that was specifically businesses and not farms. And then there's a trail map, but other than that, there aren't other maps in town.
Okay. On Earth Day, I was just wondering, we batted around some ideas last time, and just wondering if anybody had any further thoughts or ideas, or, you know, what we would do for Earth Day.
And if we can, I think we're starting to formulate some ideas. and I guess all that starts later. Something that carries a thread through is my only thought, which is a very incomplete thought, but something that somehow connects to everything that we just talked about.
Yeah. Like in terms of promoting locally sourced products in town.
Yeah, something like celebrating farms or raising some awareness around what's available locally. I mean, it's the very beginning of the season for most things, so it's not a lot like available.
Right. Yeah, I was thinking
First
like,
farmers market would be in May, right? So a month
Yeah.
later.
yeah. That's originally, I was like, oh my gosh, I was like, farmers market, Earth Day. And then I was like, oh man, it's a month too late.
Too early.
By any chance, you haven't spoken with, I think it was Casey, is that correct?
Yeah, I was supposed to, and then I didn't, but I have full expectation to make that connection between now and next
Okay,
meeting. So kicking it down the road, but work in progress.
okay, perfect. Yeah, I actually had followed up with Jim from the town about because I know he was creating a Facebook page for us and was going to make us users. I haven't heard back on that. I did check in, but I haven't heard back from him on that. So more to come, but just knowing that I would be not the most effective. Like I could share stuff, but like I'm not good at engaging. In other words, you know what I mean? Like I can post about here this article, but getting followers, I'm not the person to do that. And I know last time we were talking about like maybe some sort of Earth Day related ice bucket challenge kind of thing.
I was gonna Google and look up to see what other towns might do on Earth Day or what other sustainability committees might do.
Yeah. You know what? And that could be, I'm reaching out to Sustainable CT about the grant match for the farmers market. I can ask if they have other ideas for what towns are doing. That's a good idea because I'm sure they follow this really closely. So I can ask them.
Good idea too.
Yeah, I think for anything social media related, if you agree, maybe we wait to see if Casey would be willing to kind of get involved because I'm hesitant to really launch some sort of like social media campaign thing if we don't have like a designated person to do it, because I just know that I would suck at it and then it might just fall flat.
Yeah, all
okay
that
with you
work.
guys?
I think that's a very wise decision.
Okay. Oh,
I mean, even if it just comes down to getting a handful of people together and cleaning up some roadside or trailside, or shooting small but effective is still, I think, a good option.
right. And I hope that like, even if it's like a kind of a cleanup, if we do have a Facebook page, if Jim finishes it soon, that's an easy thing that I feel like, we put out.
Yeah.
It's not as big as a campaign for something like Ice Bucket Challenge kind of thing. If we just say like, hey guys, we're meeting here, on Earth Day at 3 p.m. You know what I mean? Like that's easy enough to at least just try to publicize a little bit. We could probably even have like the town post something about it on more on like the general platforms too.
Right.
The next couple things I don't really have to mention the way of updates. I did reach out to Christine in the town to ask about whether we would be able to put a box for Bay Street textiles recycling. We had talked about like whether maybe the rec center could be a good place for it. I went back and forth with her on it, just in terms of like the size and what it would look like and what it would entail and all of that kind of thing. And I haven't heard back. I'll follow up again, but I think it's like it was a flurry of contact and then it kind of stopped. So I think they probably just got busy and I didn't get much traction on that. The other thing is that I reached out a couple times to the secretary or whatever the contact information was for the ag fair to say, hey, we're thinking of like wanting to sponsor, all of your like the things that you'd eat on, utensils and everything like that. And they never got back to me. I followed up a couple times, so I don't really know. Does anybody know, or if you hear who like a direct point of contact is? Because I was literally just using the contact email address on the website that was like secretary at North Stonington Ag. Because I think Tula, you had mentioned that there was somebody that you knew that was on it, but they weren't on it anymore or something.
Yeah, I think it was the chair that recently passed away.
Oh, right.
But maybe I don't know who the vice chair is. Maybe they're a better point of contact than the secretary. And as far as Christine goes, I know they're starting the budget cycle, so
I see.
yeah, so she's swamped.
Yeah, I had just reached out to email us, which was it's not open on this computer, but it was like secretary at North Stonington Ag or something of that, like kind of, I wasn't sure if there was like a person that I could actually contact instead of this random email address that apparently no one is, either no one's answering their emails or they just hate the idea and they're like, when is she going to shut up?
They're probably not checking their email on a regular basis until it's fair time.
That makes sense too. That makes sense. Well, if you happen to meet the person who's on the committee, let me know because.
So, Alexis, on the Facebook page, the email is Peggy Sue.
Oh.
Is that who you talked to or no?
I just emailed, it was, the email address was nfairsecretary1@gmail.com.
Okay,
so another email address?
Yeah, why don't you try Peggy Sue 0316@yahoo.com.
PEGGYSUE?
Correct. 0316.
0316 at gmail.com.
Yahoo.
Yahoo. Sorry. Okay. I will try that and we will see if somebody answers me. Cool. Thank you. Peggy Sue 0316@yahoo.com. Okay, perfect. Alrighty. The next thing I just wanted to mention, on my trusty podcast, there was an episode that was on different things, but one of the things I learned was about this web browser or search engine called Ecosia, and it's let's see, I'll bring it up on the website. I just thought I would share in case you have any interest in using it. I downloaded it on my phone, and so whenever I do searches, like whenever I use my internet browser on my phone, I use the Ecosia app. I actually asked my IT, like the kind of IT manager at Chelsea Groton, I was like, can we like institute this bank wide? And they weren't so comfortable with that. And, I think it works off as Bing instead of Google. So there's certain considerations in terms of the quality of the searches. But, for my own personal use, I was like, I don't really care, it's fine with me. But they plant trees, the model that like smile.amazon.com, where they like, you use that, then they donate certain things. I think it's kind of a similar model that basically they're a nonprofit, and they use their money that is earned through searches to plant trees instead of, I don't know, do other things, give back to shareholders, I suppose. So I just thought it was interesting. I shared it with like a bunch of friends and just thought, for me personally, it doesn't hurt me to use it on my phone when I'm doing a search, or if I'm like personal email or personal computer. So I thought I would share it with you because I had never heard of it before.
That's pretty nifty. I will try the Ecosia.
And I think it said it was pretty, like they don't, they did mention something about, like they don't sell your data, that they weren't, like they're just selling the ad space. This whole thing, we don't sell your data to advertisers and have no third-party trackers, unlike most search engines. So I think if you are concerned about that, like I was talking to somebody who was like, oh, I use DuckDuckGo or something because of their privacy, that they are apparently are, if you're worried about that, they're along the lines of that kind of thing. So there's no considerations from that standpoint. Sorry. You know what I mean? If you're worried about like your data being stolen or whatever.
As if everyone doesn't know everything about us anyway.
I know, right?
Right.
And
These
we-
are
and
the
we have some-
these are the same people with Facebook and Alexa and don't think that their privacy is compromised.
Right.
Right.
Exactly. Exactly. That's why I'm like, I give up. Like, I really give up. But anyway, some people care. So I just thought I would point that out in case you're one of them. I think it's a lost cause. I think, yeah, to your point, it's like they know everything. So I wanted to point that out. Anything else that anybody wants to bring up or talk about?
I did email the elementary school principal and asked him about the Base 8 textiles box. I've not heard back, so I'm just gonna maybe give him to the end of the week, and then I'll go down the line. I'll go to the high school principal, and then if I don't hear back, then I will go to the PTO, and then I think if nothing, maybe we can. I think if the school doesn't want a box or has no desire, the former middle school, high school, which still the town owns, I think it could be, I think a good place for it might be near the greenhouse where the Red Shar voters office is.
That's a good idea.
So, yeah, but that's, we'll see if I get a response.
It's turning out to be trickier than I thought. I was like, oh, it's just a box gets shoved in the corner somewhere.
Yeah, put it in my driveway. I don't care. As long as I get a tax write-off, it's fine.
Perfect.
No, thank you for following up on that.
I have to do something. That's my one thing I did.
All right. Well, I will, unless there's anything else.
When's the next meeting?
I think it's March. Hold on one
Is it
second.
March 1st? That's the first Tuesday.
I think so. I have it in. I
Sounds
think
right.
I have it in the calendar. Let me just check.
Here.
March 1st. You're right. Yep.
The one little interesting, fun little sustainability moment that I had. So I've got a friend who is a farmer in Westerly, right over the river, and his family's been there forever. He was an old chiropractor, retired. Now he's got a little vegetable farm, kind of right across from where Westerly Packing is.
Mhm.
And they do a farm stand in the winter. They're just like delightful, wonderful, fantastic people.
Mm.
But he grew up there, then moved to Maine, then came back. And in the winters, not this year, but his family and the Lewises, know each other from being in there forever. So he has milked cows over at the Lewises for the past couple winters when
Oh.
slow season at the farm. So he has a relationship with them.
Oh.
And I was just over there because he rebuilt this barn and an old foundation, and in like the quasi underground walk up sort of area, that's where their farm stand is in the summertime. And in the adjacent part of the building, he built this kind of cold storage room. So like you would have like a refrigeration room that they harvest the vegetables, they stay in there until they go to market. But instead of putting a refrigeration system, he put lots and lots of insulation. And last year, for the first time over the winter, he went out and cut ice off the ponds and stacked ice up to keep this room cold from the beginning of the season through like the middle of the summer.
Whoa.
And I just thought that was the coolest thing. So I said, when you go next year, this was last year, let me know. So he let me know. So the past 2 weekends, I've gone out to Bariah Lewis and we go to these ponds, and with chainsaws cutting ice off of the pond and stacking it up on the trailer and bringing it in and stacking it on
Whoa.
pallets. And it's 6 feet tall and 8 feet wide and 5 feet deep. And it was just the coolest thing.
Whoa.
And that's going to stay in there until August and keep vegetables cold.
Wait, that will last? It will stay cold until August?
Yeah.
It's so well insulated that it will keep the temperature.
It's so
that
well insulated. Yeah. It's what so he knew all these Quaker farmers up in Maine, and it's what the Quakers do because, no electricity.
Wow. Oh, so then he doesn't have to have any actual refrigerators going.
Right.
Wow. Because refrigerators, yet another episode of How to Save a Planet was about refrigeration, and it's so bad. It emits such bad carbon. Yeah, it's really, 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 really bad. And basically they were saying that like ammonia is the old way that was the old refrigerant, but it's very toxic. So you're kind of like, pick your poison. Like, do you want to like potentially expose people to a harmful chemical, or do you want to not have as much emissions from the refrigerant? So that's amazing. That's so cool.
Yeah. The whole thing was just super, super cool. And he knows them over there. So I didn't even like broach any topics, but it is an in as far as the relationship goes for the future.
Oh, good. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, because I don't know them at all. I've never met them, I don't think, as far as I know. I know Rob Miner a little bit, and then Belinda and the Leonards, but I don't know the Palmers. I don't know any of the other people. So that's good. That's good in.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'll send a couple pictures.
Photos? Yeah.
Yeah. Super cool stuff.
That's awesome. I can't believe it will last through August. Are you going out again? Is that it was a one-time thing? Oop, did I lose you? Oh no. Well.
It sounded like he was like walking in the house or something.
Oh, okay. All right. Should I motion to adjourn or?
Yeah. Yep. All right.
Okay.
Hello?
Oh,
Hi.
hey.
If you want, I just got here and you get out of the car and then you're on the phone and then it goes back to the car. It's just Bluetooth
Oh,
chaos.
right. Well, we were just, unless you had anything else, we're just gonna motion to adjourn.
Yep, that was my story. So
Well,
That's
that was a
very
cool
cool.
story to end on. So
Yeah, nice.
that was truly sustainable without wanting to be.
Yeah, exactly. I love it. It's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'll send some pictures because we have some good stuff.
Thank you.
So yeah, have a great happy February.
Happy February.
A little lighter every day.
I know. No. Great. Alrighty. I hope you all have a good evening.
All right, guys, take care.
Thanks, you too.
Bye.
Bye.